Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to our channel, Pakistan Zindabad, the next world superpower. Today, in our 30th episode, we are diving deep into a really fascinating book, Quaid-e-Azam of Pakistan, written by Mr. Zaheer Ahmad Meer. We're going to unpack the core arguments of this work, and let me tell you, its central thesis is incredibly bold. It argues that Pakistan is destined, yes, destined to become a world superpower, and that this future was all part of the original vision of its founder. So, let's get right into it.
Just take a second and let that quote sink in. Not a regional power, but one of the next world superpowers. This single sentence is the absolute heart of the book. Now, what's crucial to understand is that the author Zaheer Ahmad Meer isn't presenting this as some kind of hopeful, patriotic slogan. No. He argues this is the logical outcome of a rigorous strategic analysis. It's a conclusion he believes is rooted in the actual blueprint, the constitutional, the demographic, and the moral framework that was laid out by the Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah himself. So according to the book, this isn't just a dream. It's a prophecy that's just waiting for the right conditions to be fulfilled.
All right, so to really get our heads around this powerful idea, we're going to break it down into 4 key parts, straight from the book. First up, we'll explore what the author calls the Quaid's grand vision, and just how massive its scale really was. Then we'll look at the raw ingredients that the book says give Pakistan its superpower potential. After that, we have to tackle the tough question, what are the hindrances that have been holding it back? And we'll wrap it all up with the book's really optimistic take on what it calls a man-made rise. Okay, let's start at the very beginning, with the foundation of it all, the Quaid's vision. According to the book, what happened in 1947, that wasn't the finish line. That was just the starting gun. The goal wasn't just to create a new country. No, the true ambition was so much bigger, something that was meant to unfold over decades, even centuries. You see, the argument is that Jinnah wasn't just building a nation-state. He was laying the foundation for a future global power. And this quote right here just nails the point. The book argues that from day one, the very DNA of Pakistan was encoded with the potential for greatness. Jinnah's vision was for a nation that wouldn't just be another country. It was meant to be a model for the world, a moral giant, leading with justice and integrity, a strategic giant, a key player that no one on the world stage could ignore, an economic giant with real industrial muscle, and a military giant with the strength to protect its own sovereignty and project its influence. This was never a short-term project. It was a long-term prophecy, built into the very foundations of the state.
So that leads us right into our next section. If the grand vision was to build a giant, well, what are the raw materials you need? What are the ingredients for this recipe? The book lays out 5 core pillars, 5 inherent strengths that it says give Pakistan its natural potential to reach that superpower status. And the key thing here is, according to the author, these aren't things Pakistan needs to get, they're things it already has, just waiting to be used correctly.
And here they are, the 5 pillars the book identifies. First, its absolutely critical geographic location, sitting at the crossroads of the world. Second, a massive and incredibly young population, which is a huge engine for growth. Third, its status as a nuclear power, which is basically the price of admission to the top table. Fourth, the book highlights Pakistan's rich, untapped natural resources. And finally, its powerful Islamic identity, which gives it a unique leadership role across the Muslim world.
Let's really dig into that first one, geography. I mean, just picture a map in your head for a second. Pakistan isn't just in a region, it's the junction box for multiple regions. It's the physical bridge connecting the economic superpower of China with the energy fields of the Middle East. It's the natural gateway for all the landlocked countries of Central Asia to get to the sea. The book's point is that no major global trade route, no energy plan, no strategic military decision in this entire part of the world can be made without factoring in Pakistan. That location is a source of incredible, undeniable power and leverage.
Okay, next up, people. It's human capital. You know, a lot of the world's biggest powers are getting older, they're worried about shrinking populations, but Pakistan has the opposite. It has this incredible demographic dividend. We're talking about over 60% of the population being young. That is a tidal wave of energy, of innovation, of ambition. But, and this is the most important word in the whole quote, if, the author stresses that this incredible resource is only valuable if it's nurtured. It's a gold mine of potential for sure, but you have to actually mine it correctly with education, discipline, and direction.
Then you've got the nuclear factor. In today's world, being a nuclear power is, well, it's your VIP pass to the club of global powers. It's basically a non-negotiable entry requirement. The book frames this capability not as a weapon of aggression, but as the ultimate insurance policy for your country's sovereignty. It means Pakistan simply cannot be bullied or existentially threatened by anyone. It guarantees a seat at the table where the big decisions are made. It's a status that fundamentally changes how the world has to treat you.
And this, of course, brings us to the elephant in the room. It's the question you're probably all thinking right now. If Pakistan has this amazing location, this massive youth population, nuclear weapons, and all these resources, then why isn't it a superpower already? What went wrong? And this is where the book gets really honest, confronting that huge gap between the grand vision and the often difficult reality on the ground.
Here we have what is maybe the most important distinction in the entire book. The author argues that Pakistan doesn't have a resource problem, it has a direction problem. I love the analogy of a computer. The country has the best hardware you can imagine, a super fast processor, tons of memory, the whole deal. That's its resources, its people, its geography. The problem is the software. The governance, the leadership, the system has been buggy and inefficient. It's not a crisis of potential, it's a crisis of management.
And the book doesn't pull any punches when it lists the bugs in that software. You can see them here. Constant political instability, which makes long-term planning impossible. Crippling corruption that rots the system from the inside. State institutions that have been weakened over time. And a big one, a systematic abandonment of the very principles Jinnah founded the country on. And what does all that lead to? Relying on other countries, fighting among ourselves, a justice system that doesn't always deliver justice, and a general moral decline. But look at every single item on that list. What do they all have in common? They are all 100% man-made.
So that brings us to our final section, which is where this whole analysis builds to a really powerful conclusion. Because if all the problems are man-made, then guess what? The solutions are also man-made. They are within our control. This isn't a story about some inescapable tragic fate. It's a story about human error, and the good news about human error is that it can be corrected by human beings. The path back isn't blocked by mountains or oceans. It's only blocked by our own choices.
And this quote right here is the book's ultimate message of hope. It completely reframes the whole narrative. It says, the story of Pakistan isn't about an inevitable decline. It's about incredible potential that was squandered by mistakes that are correctable. The fall from the Quaid's original vision was because of human actions. And so the rise back to that vision, and even beyond it, is also possible through new, deliberate, man-made actions. It puts the power to shape the future squarely back into the hands of the people.
So we end this explainer with the same provocative challenge the book leaves us with. It's laid out the vision, the potential, the hindrances, and the path to a comeback, but it all comes down to this one final question. If you accept this blueprint, if you believe in this vision of a superpower Pakistan, then what is the very first, most essential man-made correction that needs to happen? What's the first domino that has to fall to start the chain reaction? What is step one on the path back to that incredible destiny? That is something to think about.
Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really fascinating book by Zaheer Ahmad Meer called Quaid-e-Azam of Pakistan. Now, this book makes a pretty bold claim. It says that Pakistan's founder left behind more than just a country. He left a clear, actionable blueprint for it to become a global superpower. So, what exactly was that blueprint? Well, let's find out. So, this is the central question the book really poses, right? What was that original blueprint? Was there some kind of master plan for national success that maybe has been overlooked all this time? The author suggests the answer is a huge yes, and that rediscovering it is actually the key to the nation's entire future.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start by really understanding this idea of a blueprint. Then we'll explore the three-step path to national revival the book lays out. We'll break down the core pillars of that vision, see what this end goal of a superpower Pakistan actually looks like, and finally, we'll get to the book's big conclusion about alignment.
Okay, first up, a founder's blueprint. So let's get right into the main idea here. The book argues that Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah's vision wasn't just a collection of, inspiring speeches or abstract ideals. It was something way more concrete, a coherent, strategic framework that was actually designed for long-term national strength and prosperity.
Now, for Section 2, the path to rise. So if you have this strategic framework, this blueprint, how do you actually put it into action? The book suggests it's not nearly as complicated as you might think. In fact, it argues the whole blueprint can be boiled down to a single, powerful formula, a really clear sequence of steps for a national comeback that's both profound and surprisingly straightforward.
And here it is. This is that formula. It's a simple three-part journey. You return to Jinnah, which then leads to restore the state, which finally results in rise as a superpower. Now, the key insight here is the order, the sequence. One step can't happen without the one before it. It's laid out as a clear cause and effect relationship for national success.
Let's break this down a little bit more. Return to Jinnah, that's the foundation, right? It's all about reconnecting with those core values. Restore the state is what happens next. It's the direct result of that return. You start fixing the systems, the institutions. And finally, rise as a superpower is the destination. It's the logical outcome of having a principled state that actually works. Each step literally builds on the one before it.
So, Section 3, Pillars of Greatness. This brings us to that first and probably most crucial step, return to Jinnah. What does that actually mean in practice? What are these founding principles we're talking about? Well, the book identifies 8 specific, non-negotiable pillars that it argues are the absolute bedrock of the entire vision.
And here they are. First, rule of law, where absolutely no one is above the law. Then there's meritocracy, where what you know matters more than who you know. National unity that goes beyond any ethnic or sectarian divides. Moral leadership that people can actually trust and believe in. Economic and strategic independence. Strong, impartial institutions. And finally, a huge national focus on education and discipline. The author really stresses that these aren't just fuzzy ideals. They're described as universal, nation-building laws that have been proven to work throughout history.
Okay, on to Section 4, Vision of a Superpower. So let's say a nation successfully rebuilds itself on those 8 pillars. What does it become? What's the endgame here? The book doesn't leave it up to our imagination. It paints a very clear and, honestly, a very compelling picture of what it calls a superpower Pakistan.
According to the book, the result is a nation that has 5 key characteristics. It's a model Islamic welfare state, really focused on justice and equality. It's a regional economic powerhouse, driven by technology and trade. It becomes a global diplomatic bridge, connecting different civilizations. It's a respected and secure strategic military power. And maybe most importantly, it's a nation that becomes known for its integrity and its talent.
And this just brilliantly sums up the ultimate goal. That phrase, where character becomes capital, wow, that's powerful. It suggests a society where things like honesty, discipline, and merit aren't just moral virtues. No, they become the nation's most valuable economic and strategic assets. It's a vision where national strength is built first and foremost on the character of its people.
And that brings us to the book's crucial conclusion. In Section 5, the key to alignment. After laying out this grand vision, the author makes it crystal clear that this isn't about creating something from scratch. The argument is that all the raw materials, all the potential, all the necessary ingredients for this future, they're already there, inside Pakistan. The problem isn't a lack of components.
And this final thought from the book really just pulls the entire argument together. It's a message of incredible optimism, really. The path to greatness isn't about finding some new secret formula, but about realigning with the original one. The book leaves us with a powerful question to think about. What if the key to unlocking a nation's entire future is simply a return to its own best ideas?
All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to explore a message, an idea, that really challenges how we've been taught to see Pakistan's story. It's a powerful and, for some, a pretty controversial message. We're going to break down the core argument of a book that says Pakistan's history isn't just a random series of events, but something much, much bigger, a destiny that's just waiting to unfold.
So let's just start with the huge question that this whole idea forces you to ask. Is a nation's story really just the messy result of political deals, wins and losses? Is it just a collection of historical accidents? Or is there something else going on? You know, a deeper current, a guiding hand, a moral purpose, maybe even a destiny that was written long ago? That's the lens we're going to be using today.
And we need to be super clear about this from the get-go. These powerful, really bold ideas, they're not coming from us. Everything we're about to unpack comes straight from the pages of the book Quaid-e-Azam of Pakistan, written by Mr. Zaheer Ahmad Meer. Our job here is just to explain the central argument of his work, which honestly presents a perspective that's as much spiritual as it is historical.
Okay, so let's get into the first major idea from the book. The author argues that if you really want to understand Pakistan, you have to look past the day-to-day politics, the headlines, all of that noise. You have to see its spiritual core. The book actually frames the country's entire creation, not just as a political victory, but as a moral, almost divine mission.
This quote, this is really the beating heart of the whole argument. I mean, think about it. The history we usually get is all about political maneuvering, right? Constitutional debates, the British leaving, all very practical things. But this view just turns that on its head. The author says no, it was something far deeper. It was an event literally carried by divine intervention, fueled by the spiritual power of the prayers of saints, and driven by the singular moral mission of the Quaid. This doesn't just add a little spiritual flavor, it completely changes the entire meaning of why the country was created, suggesting it was willed into existence for a much higher purpose.
And if you follow that logic, it leads to this really powerful conclusion about resilience. The book's argument is pretty straightforward. If a nation's origin is tied to something as profound and permanent as a divine mission, then its destiny can't just be wiped out by today's problems. Political chaos, economic downturns, social divisions, from this viewpoint, all of those things are just temporary failures. They're like clouds passing in front of the sun. They can block the light for a while, for sure, but they can't put the sun out. They can't destroy that fundamental, predestined purpose.
Okay, but that brings up a huge question, doesn't it? If there's this grand divine mission, then what about the reality on the ground? How does this vision explain the very real struggles and the pessimism that you see and hear about every single day? Well, the book tackles this directly, and it all boils down to a really subtle but incredibly powerful choice of words.
And this slide right here shows you everything. The author is basically saying that language is critical. In a world where it's so common to hear the phrase failed state, calling Pakistan a failed dream feels final. It's an endpoint. It's like saying, well, we tried and it didn't work. End of story. But look at the other side. Calling it an unfinished dream. That changes the entire dynamic. That one word, unfinished, implies the story still being written. It suggests a journey that's just taken a pause, a mission that's waiting to be picked back up. It reframes today not as a dead end, but simply as a chapter that's not yet complete.
So, after setting up this idea of a divine mission and reframing the present challenges as just a pause in the story, the author takes the next big step. This is where the book moves from analyzing the past to making a bold, almost shocking prophecy about the future.
Seriously, just let those words sink in for a second. This isn't framed as a hope or a wish or a possibility. The book states it as a certainty. The story is not over. The current decline, that's just temporary. And the next part, the rise, well, it's not just possible. It's not just likely. It is, and I quote, inevitable. This is the absolute core of the prophetic message. A national comeback isn't just on the table, it's guaranteed.
Then, the author starts to paint a picture of what this inevitable rise actually looks like. And it starts by tearing down the negative narratives. The book is crystal clear on this point. Whatever this future is, it is not one of weakness. It's a total rejection of any idea that the nation is fragile or destined to fall apart.
And from there, the vision pivots. It's not just about not being weak. It's about being the opposite. The destiny laid out in this book isn't just about getting by or finding stability. No, the future that is prophesied is one of genuine strength, of real global significance, of undeniable power.
And right here, this is the peak of the prophecy. The final destination of this inevitable rise, according to the book's thesis, is nothing less than global leadership. This is presented as the ultimate fulfillment of that original divine mission we talked about. A nation that doesn't just get back on its feet, but rises to become a leader on the world stage. It's an incredibly ambitious and, for many, an astounding claim.
So, obviously, the big question is, how? How does this happen? Does the nation just wake up one day and find itself in this powerful new reality? Well, according to the book, absolutely not. This incredible prophecy, it isn't unconditional. It's not a free ride. It's a destiny that has to be earned, a future that has to be unlocked. And the key lies in a very specific path forward.
And there it is. That's the key that unlocks everything. This inevitable rise is promised, but it's promised for a nation that returns to its moral and constitutional origin. You see how it all connects back to the beginning? The path to this incredible future, according to this view, is actually a journey back to the past, back to the foundational principles that the Quaid laid out. So, the prophecy isn't just a prediction, it's a conditional reward for a nation that rediscovers its own soul.
So what does this return to origin actually look like in the real world? The author points to a very clear roadmap, the 3 pillars that the Quaid famously built his vision on. First, justice, a system where the rule of law is absolute and applies to everyone, no exceptions. Second,
Unity, getting past all the things that divide people, ethnicity, sect, politics, and forging one single, powerful national identity. And third, discipline, a collective promise to live with integrity, with order, and with a sense of responsibility to each other and to the nation. According to the book, these aren't just nice-sounding words. They are the literal instructions for unlocking that prophesied destiny.
And so, after all that, we're left with this one final, really powerful question. It pretty much sums up the entire message of Mr. Zaheer Ahmed Meer's book. It's a challenge, really. It asks us to look beyond the chaos of the daily news cycle and to think about the incredible potential that, according to the author, is just lying dormant within the nation's soul. What really happens when a people reconnect with their original purpose? The book's answer is clear: destiny happens. And on that thought, we want you to know that this is just the beginning of the conversation. The themes we've just touched on, this idea of revival, of returning to a nation's founding principles, and building a future that lives up to that original mission, that's going to be the absolute focus of our upcoming series, Quaid-e-Azam, Rebuilding the Future State.
We really hope you'll join us as we dive even deeper into these massive questions. So make sure you subscribe, because you are not going to want to miss what we believe will be an absolutely essential exploration of a nation's identity, its challenges, and what the author calls its ultimate prophetic destiny. Thanks so much for joining us.